Hi, this is Kevin Trainer. Welcome to my tutorial on um, how to clone a remote repository on your local machine, probably your laptop, on Mac OS using SourceTree. In fact, the Mac OS client for SourceTree. Now, I'm recording this specifically for my senior capstone class at UWM. And it's probably so specific to our course that if you're not part of the course, it probably won't have a lot of value for you. And I'm recording it in the spring 2019 semester. And I'm expecting it to have a fairly good long life. So, whereas the examples in terms of the names of repositories and such are they include the name of the semester. Well, I'm hoping that this has had a good long life and that you're in a future semester and you'll just have to adjust accordingly. So the first thing that you need is you need a Bitbucket account. So in this class, we create a shared web content. Um, it's really a website. It's a static website that has information about all of us who are associated with the senior capstone sections that I'm teaching during the semester. And we use the Git version control system in order to mediate our shared uh, authoring and revision of the website. So it's a really simple application. We all know how to do a static website. Certainly by the time we get to the senior capstone class. We do it on Bitbucket. Why? Because the Bitbucket people, the people at Atlassian.com have been good to me, and have given us. They give me a free instructor account. They were once more generous than the GitHub people. The GitHub people have now kind of caught up, but I'm already kind of loyal to Bitbucket, so that's why we use that. And of course, uh, you're going to have to have an account on Bitbucket in order to get this all to work. And in fact, if you look at the instructions for the assignment that you're on, you'll see reference to what you need to do to get a Bitbucket account that's associated with your UWM email account. Okay, so here I am. I'm on the Bitbucket account that I have associated with my UWM email address. And I have a lot of repositories here that we've used over various lengths of time. But the top one is the one that I created not too long ago today. It's called Senior Capstone Spring 2019. Okay. And if this is a future semester, it's going to have a similar name with the name of your semester. Okay. Now, in order to do the cloning that you're going to do, which is to clone from the remote repository, which is what we're looking at now. We're looking at my account on the remote repository at bitbucket.org. In order to clone from there to your local machine, I'm on my local machine. It's my MacBook Pro, right? Typically, you're going to want to be doing this on your PC. And in order to do that, you have to sign into your your account, okay? And I have to have added you to a group that's associated with this repository and has been given some rights. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the repository. And right now, the way you go and look at who's authorized to use it, you go down, you look at settings and user and group access. And right now, we've got two proper users who are directly given authority as me as the owner and the person who's working as the TA in the current semester is my good friend Awab Khan. And so he and I both have admin access. And we have a group of people, all the students for the current semester. And so we get to add you all at once, which is kind of fun. And here you are. Let's see if we can just do this. Here you are down here. Perhaps I'll make the page just a little bit smaller. Yeah, so you can see it. So the group I put the people in the current semester in, spring 2019 senior capstone students. And if I click the link there, well, first of all, before I do click that link, you can see that you all have write access. That's all that you should need. If I give you admin access, you'll accidentally do all kinds of evil things to the repository. And certainly with read and write access, you can do plenty of evil things to the repository. It's a good thing we're able to back up to previous states. So if we look at the group, we can see we have a bunch of people who are members of the group already, okay? And these were people who already had a Bitbucket account when I created the group, and I added everybody to the group using their UWM email ID. For people who Bitbucket didn't know about, it went ahead and sent invitations. Okay, so some of the people in the current semester don't have an account associated with their UWM email ID yet, and they have hopefully an invitation email in their inbox. If not, it's probably hiding in a folder called junk or a folder called clutter or something like that. And in any case, you open the email and you follow the instructions, and you will eventually get up here to the list of people who are part of the group. One warning on getting hooked up, okay? And that is, if you get to your invitation and it has expired, now you're going to have to go to the help desk for the course and tell us that has happened. Tell us who you are. Tell us what your UWM email ID is, and that you need us to resend the invitation. What eventually happens is so I go down and I find you, and I click and I resend the invitation. So that's how we get all this to work. Okay, that's how you are hooked up. And if I go up to my top page, which I do by going to the top left and clicking on this icon, again, I'm going to get a list of my repositories. When you have proper access to the repository, it's going to show up on your list of repositories. If it hasn't shown up, you don't have access yet. And usually the ones that you've gotten access to most recently are at the top of the list. Or it could be how recently they were updated. In in any case, I would think that it would be towards the top of the list. Okay, so what are we going to get from here? Well, we're really not going to use a repository here, but in order to clone it on our local machine, in this case, my laptop, I'm going to need some information for the repository. So if I click on the repository itself, and in the current version, there's a button up here on the right side called clone. If it's a couple of semesters away, it might be a little different, but I'm going to click on clone. And what I have here is I have a character string that you could use. You could actually copy this into the command line on any computer that had Git installed. And you could run this at the command line, and you could clone the repository on your local machine using the command line. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is that we're going to copy that string. We're not going to use all of it. We're only going to use the URL. Okay. So I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to open just a text editor here. So let me open up. I've got didn't quite get it open. So let me open up a text editor here again. Okay. So here's the text editor. And I'm just going to look at that text. Let me make it a little bigger. Okay. So the command line way to do this on your machine would be to paste this into the command line and run it, and it would in fact clone it on your machine in the directory that you were in on the command line. Well, that's not how we're going to do it. That's kind of for people who are using Macs, for instance. That's kind of primitive. Okay. We're going to use the source tree client to do this. But the string we're going to be looking for soon is just the URL associated with repository. Notice when we look at the URL here, let me make it just a hair bigger. When we look at the URL here, okay, we can see that this is the URL for me to access my repository. So it has both my ID, my Bitbucket ID in the beginning, and it also has my ID later down the path. Okay, now yours is going to have your ID, I think probably later down the path. It's probably this one right here. Okay? So, because this is a private repository, we each have our own link to it. Okay? And then when we go to access it, it asks for us for a password. What's the password that it wants? It wants the password associated with our own Bitbucket account. Okay. All right. I haven't gotten that far yet. So I'm going to take these windows. I'm going to close this for right now. And take these and get them off on another monitor. And I'm going to open up my source tree client. And my source tree client is currently running. So let me open it up cold. So when you open up the source tree client on the Mac, you get this really pretty window that's just a list of all the repositories that your source tree client knows about on your Mac. Okay. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to control the cloning, and we wanted to to know about the repository that we're going to have. So here on the Mac, I'm going to go up to the menu, go to File, New, and clone from remote repository or clone from URL. Between these two, I like clone from URL because that's what we have. Okay. And even before I do that, I'm going to back up and I'm going to say, um, here's what we want to do. We want to make sure that it knows what remote repository service to go to. Does it want to go to Bitbucket? What's our account on Bitbucket? Does it want to go to GitHub? If so, what's our account on GitHub? So what we can do is we can configure this source tree client in preferences. So on the Mac here, we go up to source tree preferences. Okay. And the second toolbar button, accounts, is the one that we want. And it turns out that I've got one account on GitHub and two accounts on Bitbucket. And at any one time, one of these three accounts is the default. Okay. And when I tell SourceTree to do something, I really do want it to do it with the default account. Okay, so you really want to come here. Again, how did we get here? We got here by going up to SourceTree, Preferences. We went to, we probably were on the General tab. We went to the Accounts tab. And I want to go to the Bitbucket account associated with the ID Trainer K. There, that's the one that I use for this course. And I want to make sure that it's the default. I want to make sure it has the proper values. So if you don't have an account, add one. There's an add button. Okay. Then when you have an account, if you have one already, you want to edit it and you want to make sure it's got the proper values. Okay. Here's what I say to use. Auth type, basic. So the choices were basic or OAuth, we're going to use basic. Okay. Username, trainer K. This is just the username that I picked when I set up my account at Bitbucket. I use the ID that I have from UWM. Password. This is a password that you're going to get asked for every time you try to use your account on that remote repository server. Okay, and there only is one. And then the protocol that we want to use HTTPS. We could have used SSH, but I haven't made that work successfully. So these values in your account are the ones that are going to work. Okay, and we want to save. Okay, and one more thing, make sure it's set as the default account. Currently it is, but why don't we change it to another account I have at Bitbucket? If I highlight that and I click on set default, that becomes the default. And that's not what I want. I want the trainer K1 at Bitbucket to be the default, and that's it. So when you're done, you can just close that. Okay. So that's the first thing that you want to do. You want to make sure that you've configured your SourceTree client to be working with the proper account on the proper remote repository server. Okay. Then let's go clone the repository. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to go up to the menu and click on File, New, Okay. Clone from URL. Okay. And it wants to know the source URL. Okay. You'll remember I had that. I got that from uh, the Bitbucket website. And it's only asking for the URL. It's not asking for the Linux command for command line get, right? So I'm going to copy the URL and get it out of there. And now I'm going to plunk it right here. Pretty good. Now I'm going to tab off of it. When I tab off of it, it says, oh, well, we're going to put this local copy of the repository into users Kevin Trainer. Well, um, that's my user home directory, and that's where I'd like to keep them. So that's there. It has the name of it. What? How does it have the name of it? Well, it pulled it off the server. Okay, we gave it the URL, and it was able to do that. I trend I tend to leave the names the same between the copy on the remote server and the copy on my local machine. I think that's a good practice. Advanced options. Check out branch, recurse submodules. Nothing that we do in our course. Okay, so we're just about ready to go. I just want to tell you that some people get to the screen here when they want to clone the repository and things go sour. Okay, they they say that they put the URL in and they'll get something like not a proper URL, or uh, they'll get the beach ball will begin to spin and you'll get all that kind of stuff. Typically, I mean, there are a lot of problems and we can help you with all of them, but one thing to be very suspicious of is whether you configured your default account the right way for SourceTree. So if you give it the URL and it's not really recognizing that as a proper URL for a remote repository, go back and see that you have the account set up correctly and you have marked it as your default. And now we can just say that we want the clone. We'll click on clone. Uh, and we're going to watch it come down. Okay. And this is the other manifestation of SourceTree on the Mac. It's got two different app windows, and it's pretty easy to work with. Okay, so what you should have, file status is the part that tells you what files have changed in the repository. It's a list of the files that have changed. Well, guess what? We don't have any that have changed. So it's empty because we just brought it down. Click on history. Okay. We should see the history for the repository. Okay. All that's been done to the repository so far is when I created it, I gave it an initial commit. Okay. All right. There it is right there. Okay, so let's go searching a bit. Let's open up the Finder. Let's open up a new window. Let's just go see where that repository is and get to know it before we have to make any changes. Okay. All right. So my home directory in macOS is called Kevin Trainer. Um, it's a home a directory of the Linux variety. And then in the Finder app, we can find things alphabetically. And here we see Senior Capstone Spring 2019. There it is. That has all the parts in it. Okay, and it just happened to be expanded. Okay, and let's open that up. Okay. I don't know if I can make the type a little bigger or not. I can. Okay. Okay, so what's here? Okay. The first directory is called .git. The dot means it's a hidden directory. Um, in my operating system, I have turned on the option where you can see hidden directories, so that's why I can see it, and it's gray. And this holds all of the metadata associated with the repository. It's not something that we access directly, but it's something that we're going to recognize um, because it's in the Git directory. And this is how Git does all the magic repository stuff on what is otherwise an ordinary directory structure. This next thing is a project from the Oxygen editor that I use to create the website. I generate a lot of this with XML and XSLT. In fact, you'll see that there's an XML directory. Don't really want you fooling around with anything in there. There's an XSLT directory. Don't want you fooling around with anything in there. What do we have? Well, we have a directory of instructors, okay, and that contains a web page for me and one for my friend Awab Khan, and we have one for students, okay, and this has your page in here, okay. I've had to change the design of the file name structure for web pages to make it a little more friendly. We used to use user IDs and things .html, but it's in last name underscore first name order. Okay, so I have a sample student whose name is, we're acting as though the name were sample student. So last name student, first name sample.html. In your next assignment that you're going to do, you're going to find your page and you're going to change the code in that page. Okay, that's essentially all that you're doing. And in fact, that's pretty easy to do. Okay, so we have a page for all of the students, for each of the students, and even one phony student. We have a page for each of the instructors. Okay. Uh, uh, we're going to have a page for each of the teams. Okay. Um, right now they just have the numbers 1 through 10. Okay, and that's what they look like. Okay, well, how do you open up a site like this? Well, you can go to index.html and you can say open with. I'm just going to open it with, let's open it with Chrome. And it's opened up on another monitor. Isn't that nice? Oh, I see. I already had that open on another monitor. Very good. And here it is. So the default page that we come to is what we call the student index page. Okay. This is a page that I generated and you won't have to do anything with, but it has a list of all of the students. And the student names are links. So when you click on student comma sample, it goes to the student web page for student comma sample, which is how we write the name of our good friend sample student. We can see that they're a student, and we can also see there's a little bit of content. Each student is expected to add some appropriate content to this part of the page. Okay, so when I'm going to do the changing of the page, I'm going to do it right here. Of course, I'm not going to do it in the browser. I'm going to do it in a text editor, right? So it's going to be your first assignment is to do that for your page. Okay? And in fact, I'm just going to jump ahead um, here. I've opened that within the browser. What if we did that? What if we just went and changed that page? What would that look like? Okay. This may overlap with another one of the videos, but I'm just going to highlight that and say open with. I like this text made editor, so I'm going to open it with that. It does pretty good source coloring, that kind of stuff. We can see we've got an HTML5 page, right? And so what we're going to do here is we're going to go to the part that we're supposed to change. Okay. And let's change it. It's in italics just to catch your attention. So your version doesn't have to be in italics. Well, I got rid of my. That's better. P and NP for a paragraph. And I'm just going to say sample student is a fictional student in my senior capstone class. Her page allows me to demonstrate how to change content on a student web page. Okay, that's it. So I'm going to save. This is typical text editor. I'm going to save. All right. So now if we go back up, let's go back up here. Okay. Well, now if we go back here and we want to open index.html, which is the overall landing page, right? Well, I'll go find my friend sample student and we'll go to her page and it's changed. Okay, so that's how to find your page. That's how to change your page. It's that easy. Later on, we'll have videos on how to commit your page and how to commit your changes and all of that kind of stuff. But for right now, that's what you had to do to clone it. That's what you have to do to find your way around. Now, one of the nice things about these, your your local copy of the repository um, is that it's just a normal directory structure. We were able to just go find it. The only thing it's been done is it's been giving this uh, hidden .git metadata directory. That's the only thing that's actually happened to it. Apart from that, it's just a plain old directory. Okay. Now, how does it how does it act as a repository? Okay. Well, again, we're in the there are, on the Mac there are two application windows for the source tree client, and we're in the one that you're in when you've um, when you have opened a repository. And again, we can see that we have the history. We have this initial commit, but you can see we made some changes, some uncommitted changes. So if we click over here on file status, we can see that there's one file called it's in the directory students, and it's called student underscore sample.html, and it's had some changes made. And what changes have been made? Well, if we click on the file, we can see over here the changes have been made. And they're always expressed in terms of what lines have been deleted and what lines have been added. So even though you and I think of these things as changes, this technology thinks of it as a delete of the original line and an add of the new lines. So you can see the original line in kind of red or pink. That's what got deleted, and you've got the new lines in green with the plus, and those are the new ones. Okay. I'm just going to, while I'm here, I'm going to show you one of the differences between the source tree client for the Mac and the source tree client for Windows. Git has this kind of two-stage approach to committing your changes. Okay. Um, uh, when you come into the Mac version of this, you've got kind of two windows, and the things that haven't changed are down at the bottom. Okay. They're unstaged. And the way that you say that you want to commit them is you click on them, and then you say that you want to stage them, and then they move up top. One of the nice things about the Mac client is that there's only one list of files that have been changed, and there are checkboxes. Okay, and if you check a box, that box says, I am staging this file, so it will be part of the next commit. Okay. Um, this sort of allows you to do the following thing. Let's say you made a lot of changes and you thought, oh, I really wanted to commit those individually. Well, what you do is you just pick the first group and click the individual ones that you want and leave the others unchecked. And we're going to learn how to do commits in another video, but you commit them, and you are able to provide a commit message for each of the commits. So these could be the changes to program A. And then when you come back, you still have a list of the things that you haven't committed yet. And then you might click a couple more and say the changes to program B. Now, this kind of hides the native Git feature of having to stage things in order to have them be part of the commit. It really brings staging becomes checking the box, okay, which is really handy, especially for beginners like a lot of us, okay, and that makes it pretty easy to do. Okay, so I'm not going to go ahead and do the commit. I'm going to leave that for a future video, but you would be ready to go right here. All right, so that's how to clone a remote repository on your own local machine using the source tree client on macOS. Um, as you can see, there's one change pending that we haven't committed yet. That means one file with changes. Okay. And you can see that I use this a lot. So I really think this is a great tool. It's a free tool. So the next time we get together, we're going to be talking about, I'll show you again how to change your pages and how to do the commit. Okay? So I'm going to say bye for now. Bye bye.